and indeed the growing opportunities we have to collaborate in space technology. We've also spoken in Biarritz about the biggest global challenges confronting us all today, and these are things that I think also matter very much to the people in the UK. We've been talking about biodiversity. We've got to stop the tragic loss of habitats and species that is happening around the world. We can't just sit back as animals and plants are wiped off the face of the planet. The world's animal populations have declined by around 60% in the last 50 years. About 1 million species are now facing extinction, and we've seen in the Amazon rainforest the tragic increase in fires which are made more likely by deforestation. And that's why today I've announced £10 million of new funding to protect and restore the rainforest in Brazil, with 1 million birds and 100,000 mammals losing their lives every year from eating or getting tangled in ocean plastic. We've got to do much more to protect the oceans, and today we've announced £7 million for the Blue Belt programme to extend our work to protect vital marine ecosystems in conservation areas in Britain's overseas territory. And don't forget that Britain has the 5th biggest marine estate in the world. If we don't act now, our children and our grandchildren will never know a world with the Great Barrier Reef or the Sumatran tiger or the black rhino. And so next year at the Biodiversity COP, the summit in China, the so-called Aichi targets must, in our view, be replaced with new, more ambitious targets to help us get back the biodiversity that we are losing and that this planet has lost. And I'm very pleased that the G7 summit today in Biarritz accepted those UK ideas, those proposals for biodiversity targets, for humanity to set targets to stop the reduction of habitats and species. And obviously we're going to follow up on that as well at the COP summit in the UK if we're lucky enough to get that, and I very much hope and believe that we will. There's one issue underpinning all that which I believe holds the key to tackling so many global problems, and that is the vital importance of educating girls. And I'm very pleased that here at the G7, every delegation has supported the UK's campaign to give every girl in the world 12 years of quality education. And I've today announced funding to give 600,000 children in the world's most dangerous countries, where girls are twice as likely as boys to be out of school, the opportunity to go to school for the first time. We discussed Iran, and we are all agreed that Iran should never, under any circumstances, be allowed to get a nuclear weapon. And there's clearly an opportunity now for Iran to come back into compliance with the nuclear deal, the JCPOA, and to resume dialogue, as well as to cease its disruptive behavior in the region. We expressed collectively deep concern about what is happening in Hong Kong, and the G7 nations all want to support a stable and a prosperous Hong Kong, and we remain collectively committed to the one country, two systems framework. And I was pleased that that was reflected in the conclusions of the summit, which was, as I say, very productive indeed. If people can quarrel with summits and with world leaders coming together in this way for discussions about wide-ranging issues such as we have had, but I really think that if the leaders who have been gathered together at Biarritz over the last couple of days really follow through on these discussions and really mean what they say in the conclusions, I think it will make a real difference to the issues that people in our country care very deeply about. So thank you all very much for sticking with it. I know it's been a long, old summit, but I'd like to take your questions now, and I've got to go through. I know Beth is there, top of the list somewhere. Wait, no, it's Vicky Young of the BBC. But we're going to come to you. Sorry, Vicky Young of the BBC, and then Beth. Well, look, you know my position on this, Vicky, and I hope everybody knows that. I think that this is really a matter for parliamentarians to get right ourselves. We asked the people to vote on whether to stay in or to leave the EU. They voted overwhelmingly. They voted very substantially to leave by a big majority. Parliament vowed several times to reflect and respect that mandate. And I think people have just about had enough of this conversation, and I think they're yearning for a moment when Brexit comes off the front pages, but that can only happen when we come out of the EU on October the 31st. And that is what I really call on all my fellow MPs to deliver, and I hope and believe that they will. And I go to Beth.
Mr. Johnson, you talk about what MPs should do, but there is going to be, whether you like it or not, a parliamentary roadblock on your no-deal Brexit when you return to Westminster. If MPs pass a law requiring you to extend Article 50, what will you do? Will you suspend Parliament, or will you call an election? Well,
Beth, I think really I'm just going to have to respectfully refer you back to the answer I gave to Vicky just now, which is that I think that it's the job of everybody in Parliament to get this thing done. I think it's what the people want. I also think, by the way, it's what our friends and partners on the other side of the Channel want. They want this thing done. They want it over. You talk to our friends, as I have done in the last few weeks, and they are very enthusiastic about getting on with the future. They regard Brexit now as an encumbrance, an old argument. They want to talk about the new partnership that we're going to build. They want to talk about ways in which we can work together, as I said, not just on trade, but on security, on defence, on all kinds of things. And I think it's time that we in the UK started to think about all the ways in which we can think of a post-Brexit Britain doing things differently and doing things better, taking the opportunities to boost investment in in business and our industry, setting up free ports, doing free trade deals. There are big opportunities for this country. So I think we need a new way of thinking about it. But first of all, you've got to come out, as you know, on October the 31st. And yes, it's Robert Peston of ITV next.
Prime Minister, a couple of quickies, if you'll indulge me. Just put a question to the US President Trump, and what President Trump said was he now thinks it highly likely that there'll be a no-deal Brexit. He's right, isn't he?
Did he say that?
He said the EU is a tough negotiator, rather implied.
Is that what he said? Can someone clarify this before we go any further? Is that what Don said?
Corroborate what Trump just said?
Okay.
Anyway.
Back him up. Come on, back him up.
Anyway, look.
He said something on those lines.
He said exactly that.
Okay.
All right. Bloody hell. This is going to be an impossible clip to use.
Never mind.
Thank you so
Go on, sorry.
Can I ask a question?
The President said something about how the EU was a tough negotiator.
I'm going to go back to the beginning. America's president implied just now that he thought there'd be a no-deal Brexit. Do you agree with that? Tomorrow, MPs are gathering in Westminster, MPs of all parties, to issue a declaration calling on you not to use the device of suspending Parliament to force through a no-deal Brexit. Why not simply give them that commitment that you won't suspend Parliament to achieve that aim?
Thanks, Robert. And I think we're really sort of circling back over the same sort of ground here. I didn't hear the President say exactly that he thought it would be a no-deal Brexit. I think what I heard him say was that the EU are tough negotiators, and that's true, but then so are the Americans, and so indeed are the Australians and the New Zealanders. Everybody's a tough negotiator. You're a pretty tough negotiator, I expect. So, look, but that doesn't mean we won't do a deal. And we're working very hard to do that. It will be difficult. There's a substantial disagreement. But my job is to make our case, and you know what our case is, that the backstop is anti-democratic. It keeps the UK locked in the EU's customs arrangement. It keeps us locked in the legal order of the EU without any ability to influence those things. It's got to come out. It's got to change. I've made that point very, very clearly to our friends. I really think that point has now landed, so let's see where we get. and I hope that friends and colleagues in Parliament will be supportive of our efforts to get this thing done, to get rid of the old withdrawal agreement and do a much better deal. That's what we need to do. And I'm going to go to Steve Hawkes of The Sun. There he is.
Prime Minister, sorry, just another quickie on Brexit. You're roughly 25 days away from this deadline to deliver a new alternative to the backstop. Can you give us, it seems as though there is some work taking place behind the scenes, that the chances of a deal are improving. You mentioned it yourself. What work is going to be happening now on this backstopectomy that you talk about? And if I can neatly segue into something we may all want to talk about, the cricket. Would you back calls for Ben Stokes to be knighted, and can you talk about his glorious innings? Yeah, well, look. I mean, first of all, I mean, on the backstopectomy, you've beautifully summed up the operation that we hope to be doing. And that's the necessary procedure. It's a big job, but we think it can be done. I watched it. I mean, I could only watch the highlights. I thought it was one of the most extraordinary innings I've ever seen. The shots I saw, absolutely incredible. I think I've already promised that that Ben Stokes should get a dukedom. So I don't think I can't go any higher than that. But clearly, it's not a matter for me, but for some honours committee or other, and I'm sure they will take the appropriate decision in due course. Paul
Wall from HuffPost. Prime Minister, the Archbishop of Canterbury plans to chair a citizens' assembly to stop a no-deal Brexit. Is that the act of a charitable Christian, or is it the act of a turbulent priest? Well,
I'd like to see the evidence for that, Paul. I'm very interested. I got a very nice letter from the Archbishop saying that he wanted to work with me to bring our country together after Brexit had been done. So that's news to me, that particular development. Well, as far as I understand it, he wants to bring the country together, and I certainly support him in that. And I'm now going to just go. Yes, please. Sorry. You are more optimistic about the chances. Yes, I am marginally more optimistic, but remember that all statistical estimates that I give about the chances of a deal, whether they're expressed in odds of millions to one, or getting closer, or hotter, or colder, or whatever, they all depend exclusively on the willingness of our friends and partners to compromise on that crucial point and to get rid of the backstop and the current withdrawal agreement. Yes. Stephen. Sorry, I think you mean, in that sentence, I think you meant Angela Merkel. Yeah. Look, again, I don't want. I think that our German friends and our French friends have certainly listened very carefully to what we have had to say, and I really repeat what I said to Ed. It all depends on how seriously they wish to get a deal. Yes. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
The European Commission made clear today that if any of the £39 billion Brexit divorce deal is withheld, third way of trade deal with the EU, would you be willing to sacrifice a trade deal in order to keep that money?
Well, look. Under any circumstances, if there is a no-deal outcome, then substantial sums will be available, very substantial sums will be available from the £39 billion for the UK to spend on our priorities, including managing that no-deal scenario. Yes.
Hi, Prime Minister. Thank you. You've had meetings with President Trump and President Morrison of Australia, who've both talked about a trade deal within the next year. Do you think there's a chance that they'll just offer you a quick deal that will rip off Britain?
So say again, a quick deal?
A quick trade deal with the US and Australia.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I mean, all the questions have been extremely good, but that is also very good. We do not want to do as it were, a quick deal that doesn't really maximise the opportunities for the UK. Ours is an incredibly rich and diverse economy, very, very strong, particularly in services. I would rather have a comprehensive deal with the US rather than one that focused simply on goods and agri-foods that you might be able to do fast. There are big, big opportunities for us. I'm going to rattle through this. And yes.
Oh, sorry. Prime Minister Alex Morales from Bloomberg News. I was wondering if you could tell us if President Trump put pressure on you over the use of Huawei in the UK's 5G connections, and he's not putting any pressure on you at all?
Nope.
He didn't bring it up? It didn't come up in your bylaws?
Hi, William James from Reuters. Prime Minister, you've talked about how the EU likes to do deals at the last minute. Are you prepared to take talks right up to October 31st, or is there a point before that where you have to just walk away?
Well, I do think that the EU does tend to come to an agreement right at the end. That's what I've noticed in my own observation of Brussels negotiations. Clearly, for us, the walking away, as it were, would come at on October the 31st, when we would take steps to come out on the terms for which we will have by then made absolutely colossal and extensive and fantastic preparations, as you know. Yes.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Ben Glaze, Daily Mirror. Do you have confidence in John Bercow as a Commons Speaker?
I don't wish to get into. It's not the function of the Prime Minister to express confidence in the Speaker. But I hope that all parliamentarians will use their good offices to respect the will of the people and get Brexit done on October the 31st. Yes.
Charlie Cooper from Politico. Why can't you make the simple pledge to not suspend Parliament over blocking no deal? Because surely be
because I rely on Parliament.
Dictatorial acts comparable to Charles I. Why can't you make that a simple pledge?
Well, because I rely on parliamentarians to do the right thing and to honour the pledge that they made to the people of this country. Yes.
Nigel Morris from The Eye. What do you make of Jeremy Corbyn's suggestion that he should be installed as the caretaker Prime Minister for temporary administration?
Well, one of my missions in life is to my many missions in life is to protect the people of this country from the appalling consequences of a Labour government. And it is clear from what Jeremy Corbyn is now saying that not only, if he were in power, would he put up taxes on virtually everything from income to pensions to inheritance to property, not only would he align himself with some of this country's most intractable and difficult foes, but he would also renege, reject, revoke the mandate of the people. And I cannot think of anything worse for democracy or for trust in politics. And I very much hope that that does not happen. And how many more do I have to go? Heather? Yes, sorry, I was going to come to you earlier.
Would you like to take the opportunity to apologise to Philip Hammond, who felt his reputation was besmirched by briefings that disgruntled former ministers were responsible for the leaking of the Operation Yellowhammer documents?
I had no idea that Philip felt that any such thing had happened. And what can I say? Honi soit qui mal y pense. Yes.
John Stevens from the Daily Mail. The EU has said it's willing to listen to your proposals on what can replace the Irish backstop. When are you going to present these to the EU in detail?
Well, we're going to be having some discussions with our European friends, but clearly, as we've made plain over many weeks now, the so-called backstop, which I've explained again and again, has got to come out. How many more should I do? Well, yeah, I'll do two more. Yes.
David Hughes from PA Media. You've pledged extra cash to help the Amazon today, but your credentials as an environmentalist are somewhat undermined by a commitment to cut fuel duty as well. How can you be protecting the environment whilst also helping gas guzzlers?
We are wait and see what's in. I'm making no fiscal commitments whatsoever at this stage. Wait and see what happens in the budget. And I don't think my credentials as an environmentalist are absolutely unimpeachable when you consider the massive reductions that we had in both in CO2 and other forms of pollution when I was mayor. And that's the kind of approach that you're going to see from this administration, a very, very active environmentalist administration protecting habitat, protecting biodiversity, but reducing CO2 and reducing climate change emissions through technological progress, as our German friends would say, Vorsprung durch Technik. That's our approach. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.